The rain had started without warning, heavy drops striking the stone paths of the mountain estate like whispered warnings. The forest surrounding the compound stood tall and silent, its shadows stretching long under the dim lights. Inside the iron gates, everything obeyed one rule, his rule. They called him the Alpha. Not because he demanded fear, but because strength followed him naturally. His presence alone could silence a room. People listened when he spoke. People obeyed when he commanded. And tonight, his eyes were fixed on her. She stood near the edge of the courtyard, hands clenched tightly in the sleeves of her worn coat. She didn't belong here. Everyone knew it. Her posture gave her away, cautious, guarded, as if she expected the ground itself to betray her. Yet she hadn't run. That intrigued him. "Look at me," he said firmly, his voice low but steady. She hesitated, not out of defiance, but fear. When she finally raised her eyes, he saw something that made his chest tighten. Not rebellion, not arrogance, but exhaustion, the kind that came from surviving too much, for too long. "You're under my protection now," he said, his tone commanding yet controlled. "No one here will harm you." The words were meant to reassure her. But they only made her flinch. He noticed it immediately. Most people would have relaxed at that promise. She did the opposite. Her shoulders tensed, and her gaze dropped to the ground as if safety was something she had learned not to trust. That was when he stepped closer. Not to intimidate, but to understand. The wind tugged at her coat, revealing marks along her wrist. Faint, old, almost hidden. His jaw tightened. He had seen injuries before. Too many. But these were different. These weren't from battle. These were the kind left behind by silence, by endurance. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said more quietly now. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no words came out. He realized something then. She wasn't scared of him. She was scared of hope. Because hope had failed her before. "You belong here," he continued, choosing his words carefully. "Not as someone's property, not as a burden, but as someone who deserves safety." Her eyes flickered up, shining under the lights. And for the first time, her voice broke the silence. "People always say that," she whispered. "Before they hurt me." The words struck him harder than any insult ever could. That was the moment he understood. This wasn't a woman who needed saving. This was someone who had survived alone for too long. He took a step back, giving her space, not control. "Then let me be different," he said quietly. "Let me prove it." The rain continued to fall as they stood there, two strangers bound by fate, standing at the edge of a story neither of them yet understood. And in that moment, he realized something that unsettled him deeply. The scars she carried were not just on her skin. They were etched into her soul. And he had no idea how to heal them. But he knew he was no longer walking away. The rain had stopped, but the air still felt heavy, thick with silence and unspoken tension. She stood near the edge of the old forest road, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, trying to steady her breath. Every step she had taken to reach this place felt heavier than the last. Fate had led her here, or maybe she had unknowingly walked straight into it. A low growl broke the silence. She froze. From the shadows between the tall trees, he appeared. Tall, powerful, his presence alone commanded the air around him. The Alpha. His sharp eyes locked onto her instantly, burning with something fierce and unreadable. He took slow steps forward, his boots crunching softly against the wet earth. The world felt smaller with each step he took. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, rough like thunder before a storm. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "I was running." His jaw tightened. He could smell fear, but also something else. Pain. Deep, hidden pain. When he finally stood in front of her, towering over her fragile frame, his eyes darkened. "You're mine now," he growled instinctively, the words slipping out before he could stop himself. She flinched. That single movement changed everything. His gaze dropped, just slightly, and that's when he saw them. The scars. Faint, but unmistakable. Marks of suffering carefully hidden beneath long sleeves and forced smiles. His breath hitched as realization struck him like a blade to the chest. "You," His voice softened for the first time. Who did this to you? She tried to pull away, but her strength failed her. Years of holding everything inside finally cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, silent and heavy. It doesn't matter, she whispered. It's over now. But it wasn't over for him. Something inside the alpha snapped. Not rage, but something far more dangerous, protection. He stepped back, giving her space, his voice now steady but filled with emotion. No one touches what's under my protection, he said firmly. Not ever again. She looked up, shocked. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever stood between her and the world. The wind howled through the trees as if responding to his words. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar stir inside her chest. Safety. Still, fear held her back. You don't know me, she said softly. He met her eyes, unwavering. I don't need to. I see enough. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Two broken souls standing on opposite sides of pain, connected by something neither of them could explain. And that night, the night she thought would destroy her, quietly became the beginning of everything. The wind howled through the trees as night settled over the territory, carrying with it the scent of rain and old memories. She stood at the edge of the clearing, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if trying to hold together pieces that had been broken long ago. The moonlight revealed the faint lines across her skin, scars she had hidden for years, scars no one had ever truly seen. Except him. He stood several steps away, the powerful alpha who moments ago had growled words filled with dominance and anger. But now, his posture had changed. The rage in his eyes had faded, replaced by something unfamiliar, shock, regret, and pain. I didn't know, he said quietly, his voice rough but no longer threatening. No one told me. She let out a bitter laugh. They never do. People only see what they want to see. The silence between them felt heavy, but not dangerous. The air was thick with unspoken truth. She slowly turned toward him, her eyes steady despite the storm inside her heart. These scars, she said, her voice trembling slightly, aren't weakness. They're proof I survived. He took a step closer, then stopped, respecting the invisible boundary between them. For the first time, the alpha who ruled with fear looked unsure of himself. Who did this to you? He asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I'm still standing. The wind rustled her hair as she lifted her chin, refusing to look small. He realized then that strength wasn't always loud. Sometimes it lived quietly inside someone who had been broken and rebuilt themselves again and again. I thought you were hiding something from me, he admitted. But I see now, you were protecting yourself. Her eyes softened, but the pain didn't disappear. People, like you don't understand what it's like to be powerless. To be told you belong to someone else. His jaw tightened. I do now. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to one knee, not in submission, but in sincerity. I won't claim you, he said. Not with fear, not with force. If you stay, it will be because you choose to. The words stunned her more than any threat ever could. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Not love, not trust, but the possibility of it. She took a step forward. I don't need a savior, she said. But I won't run anymore either. Their eyes met under the pale moonlight, two wounded souls standing at the edge of something new. The night no longer felt dangerous. It felt uncertain. And sometimes, uncertainty was the beginning of freedom. As the wind carried away the echoes of her past, she realized something important. This night didn't break her. It changed her.